Change takes a lot of courage and a lot of persistence, persuasion. It's about knowing why you want change and then saying, okay, I'm just going to go on and not give up until I've achieved it. Or do you? Or are you someone who says, well, I would like change, but I don't know if I would just keep going until I've achieved it. And I guess that's what it makes the difference between if you are serious about that change or not. So, how far are you willing to go when it comes to change? Anyway, I took change as an acronym and I decided to write a little something about it. And well, of course, the first letter C for me is for courage because it rarely is that someone says, oh, change, yes, I'm going to embrace it, and oh, nice. Even if we want it, the question is, how willing are we to do the legwork? How willing are we to embrace it all? Because with change come other things. And if we want to think about change, then we also need to think about the consequences. What are the consequences of the change that we want? Are there financial consequences? Does it mean that you are going to be surrounded by totally different people? Does it mean that your choices actually mean that you are going to say, okay, here are my boundaries. This is what I do. This is what I don't do anymore. So change can have a lot of impact. And like I said, it takes courage. It always takes courage to do something new. And sometimes it just happens by accident. And sometimes, well, someone asks us, like, hey, are you going to join me? And then it's going to be fun too. But how often do you actually change something? Now, the good thing is that new things are good for the brain. That's why change is so good too when it comes to doing things a little bit differently. For instance, with drumming, when we change things, so instead of doing things with the right hand, we do it with the left hand. Instead of doing it with the arms, we do it with the legs, or we just shift it one count. Ooh, that makes such a big difference. But it's good to train the brain. Sometimes switching things around does help. But yes, do we want to? Or are we already like, really? So, courage. I guess that the bigger the change is, the more courage it takes. But, it's also like muscle. And well, if we're not inclined to change anything at all, then probably the small changes won't be that easy either. And of course, then we have people who are on the spectrum, people who are neurodivergent and absolutely crave a system. How willing are they to go through change? Because that means that everything has to be done different. And when you're hooked up to a schedule and a system, then, well, again, that's hard. So, again, how much courage does it take? And, well, I know for a fact that for a certain amount of people, it does take a lot of courage to keep going, even when you don't want to. Because not always is change a choice. Sometimes we have to deal with what we've got. And like I said, it takes courage to get to see what is on the other side. So how willing are you to do it? What if you don't have a choice? How willing are you to work hard to get a good result, get a better result than what you had before. Now, the H stands for higher goal. And usually, when you initiate a change, you do it because you have a goal in mind. You want to go to the next level. Of course, when change is forced upon you, then the question, of course, is, does that mean that it will take you to a higher level? But I do believe that one door closes, then another door opens. So I am aware that change is not always voluntarily. And as a result, that not everybody is going to say, yeah, well, it's going to take me to a higher level. So the question is, if you are confronted with change, what are you going to do? And just maybe it's a reason for you to go do something totally different. In my life, I have had situations where I couldn't go on the way that I wanted to. But the biggest change was the moment that I decided to go work as an entrepreneur, and solely as an entrepreneur. So at some point, I was both working for someone and I was an entrepreneur, but not being able to do the work the way I wanted to. That was like, okay, well, if I cannot go with this interim manager, then, I'm done. And so it happened. I was done. I was like, okay, the people don't accept me for who I am. They don't like the way I work, but this guy, this interim manager, could accept me. And he actually saw the failure, and I was like, oh my God, if I have a new one, how's that going to work out? And that's why I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to do it. So the willingness to go back to a situation where I was like, this is not going to work out, made me actually choose something else. The A stands for anchor or trigger. Now, this is a really important part. So when we talk about change, especially when we want change, and then I go back to courage, it takes work. It takes a lot of work to change things for the better. It hardly ever just happens, oh, easy, walk in the park. If it does, awesome. But if it doesn't, then you need something to keep you going, to remind you of all the investments that you've already made, whether it's financial or because you put a lot of energy and effort into it, hours into it. There are things that you've done in order to make this change happen. But what if you're not there yet? Then what are you going to do? And that's when we talk about the anchors and the triggers. So what helps you to keep on going? What do you need? Is it support from other people? Is it something like, okay, if this happens, and you may write it on a piece of paper, then this is going to be the outcome. And you so desperately need that outcome that you say, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Doesn't matter what's going to happen. I'm just going to do it. But still, it's nice if there's something that reminds you of what's waiting on the other side. And that's why an anchor or a trigger can be so powerful. An anchor can be something like a symbol, like something that makes you smile. So why did I do this? Because it always reminds me of the extra inch that Eric Carr, the late drummer of Kiss, used to wear under his platform boots. So he was the drummer before he passed away. And Well, he was kind of short, so they already were walking on these platform boots. Of course, drummers rarely do because, well, you cannot use the bass pedals with it. But when he would be getting out there, then he would wear them. But they were a little bit higher, and he was a funny guy, so he always makes me smile. So that's why I said this is what makes me smile. Now, an anchor trigger is like a reminder, like, okay, but it can also help you to keep on going. If you know what you're doing it for, then. So I've created a little anchor, a little trigger. In my mind, it's actually on this hand. So on this one, I already have one. On this one, I don't. But it's like a circle, and I know what it stands for. But the circle, or it's half a circle, it's the shape of a bridge. And, well, if you look on the sides, well, first of all, you can sort of see radiance like a sun, but you can actually also see the stage lights. And that's where it becomes exciting, because when we're talking about the stage and being on stage and speaking on stage, well, that's something that's so worthwhile. Negative to positive. I talk a lot about this, or with my clients, at least I do with my coaching clients. So I made this worksheet, and it's about how can we change our negative thoughts, our negative perceptions, our negative beliefs to positive ones. That's the question. And with this framework, I take people to the possibility that actually things can be looked at from a positive side. If you don't know what you want to do, or then, and you say so, then you can actually say, okay, so this is what you don't want. So what is it that you do want? What if you take away the no, the negativity? What do you end up with? And it's kind of powerful if you do it. And it also helps you accept certain emotions, especially when you write it down. And you acknowledge that you might be fearful or that you are disappointed. By letting that emotion come out, you can actually let another emotion come in. And that actually helps you go from negative to positive. So then there's the G. G for what I call groundwork. So the legwork, the basics of what you need to do. So what do you need in order to actually get that change done? Do you need to do research? Do you need to do a survey? What is it that you need to do in order to actually make the change a success? So it's not just about the courage. It's not just about going to a higher level. The higher level, of course, is why you do it. It's not only about having an anchor as a reminder. It's not only, but it is a large part about changing things into positive things. It's also about, but what do you need to know? And like I said, that's research. So if I look at the change that I'm making right now, and you might have noticed this, is I'm making a shift from working with people one-on-one. There's this expression, which is B2B, business to business. And of course, you also have B2C, which is business to customer. But basically what they want to make the difference is between, okay, do I talk to other business owners and businesses, or do I talk to people who are clients but do not have their own business? Now, when you know that I want to leave a legacy and I want to cause a ripple effect, I want to create a ripple effect where people learn to speak up and speak out and share their story. And you combine that with one huge wish I've had for decades, and that's making a change in business lives, as in what's going on in businesses, in the environment. Is it a safe environment? Do people feel like, hey, our skills are being seen, they are being nurtured, we can grow here? Do people feel they are trusted, or do they feel they are controlled? And having been in so many situations, in so many roles, in so many organizations and reorganizations, I've seen time and time and time again how it shouldn't be done. And that's one of my huge wishes, to actually help improve communication within companies. And I know, like no one else, how disappointed people can be. Disappointed, oh my God, there's another one. Well, last time didn't work either. So why would it work now? Or we already have so much on our plate. You really want to get this going? Oh, well, we can change this, but we don't have any mandate. We don't have the trust. We don't have the power, hence mandate, which comes with the change. And that's why I really would like to see if things can be changed, not only on a one-on-one level with one person or a number of people, but what if it can be done within organizations? And, if a manager or a business owner can learn to do certain things a little bit better, can learn to understand their employees a little bit better, and learn to find that balance between what are we going to share and I don't have to say anything at all because I'm the boss and they just have to do it. Well, I do believe that an open policy, as in sharing certain things about what you want to do with the company, and also the open door policy, so that people can actually come and talk to you and share their ideas, share their frustrations, share what they see could improve, share possibilities. For some reason, this seems to be happening a lot when I'm live. But getting back to being able to talk to someone without hearing like, but you cannot talk to me. You have to talk to your own team leader or your direct manager. How dare you come to me? I don't have the time for you. Well, that would be disappointing if people say so. But it does happen. And what also happens a lot is that, they say, okay, let's go talk. And then there is no feedback. Nothing ever happens. And maybe something happens, but it's just not shared. And that's why if I can make that difference within companies, I can get different business owners to talk to one another and compare things and then make them accountable, well, have them make themselves accountable among one another, being a group with the best intentions. Oh my God, wouldn't that be cool? So you now already know what it is that I want to achieve. But I also am aware that by doing so, and I've shared this before, I'm like, but don't I chase away? Am I not chasing away other people who are not business owners? Now, the good news is that I do work with also younger people who do not dare, who didn't dare to speak up and speak out, or didn't know how to speak up and speak out. Quite often it was, well, it's a mixture. I wanted to say quite often it was not even about courage, it's just that they didn't know or they had given up. But I also know there are a few out there who have learned that if you speak up, then it's. And these people need to learn that it's okay to speak up and speak out and share what's on their mind. Well, I have to say that being able to make a change for these people, being a role model for these people, and actually helping them see that there's perspective again is one of the best things. And yes, I want to do it on a bigger scale. I want to see that things change in organizations because I am talking to the managers, I am talking to the business owners, and they realize, hey, more can be done. And well, it's nice because I do hear some things, even when it starts out as coaching a person because of things which are happening in their personal life and at some point also in business life. When we start to talk about communication and importance, and also looking at their employees and what can change, maybe at first it's like, I don't know. But then when they actually embrace it and you see the change happen because they give trust to their employees, well, that's kind of cool now, isn't it? So, yeah, to get there, it takes also research. Like, hey, if I want to do this, if I want to make this change, then what do I need to do in order to figure out if people actually agree with me? So I talked about the freedom framework the last couple of weeks, and I believe that it's a valid one. But having worked with my coach for a while now, I said, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to do a survey. And I'm looking at which platforms I can go to best. So I have my ideas. And that's going to happen. But it's still about doing it. It's not about saying, I want one thing and not do anything at all. I mean, if you want change, it does require action too. So it's not just courage. It's not just about knowing what it is you want to do. It's also about doing it and believing in yourself. And that's why going from negative to positive is so immensely important. Now, the last letter of change is the E. Now, I had a lot of different ideas about the E, and I stuck with engage. I could have said evaluate because it's the last letter, but I was like, no, this is about more. And why engage? Because I was like, it's about talking to other people. It's about having others also be a part of your dream and have them tell you this is going to work and this is not going to work. This is a good idea. I don't know if that's going to be a good idea. How are you going to approach it? It's so people actually can keep you accountable for your own idea, for your own dream, for your own change. And that's why engage is so important. And engaging on, does take courage. I mean, who are you going to confide into? Who are you going to share with that you want to focus on this shift that you've got? And well, support is the one thing that actually can keep you moving on. But yes, it does require something on your end. How willing are you to talk about what it is that you want to do? Because once you start talking about it, then people expect something from you. And what if you are not going to do it? What if you started it and then you stopped? That could be quite scary. So, engage is a choice. Just like change, in this case, is a choice. And sometimes it's not a choice, it happens. You still want to talk about it with other people. Like, hey, do I want to continue on with this? This is change that I didn't approve of. It's a change that happened, was forced on me. Then you want to talk to other people and see, what am I going to do? Am I going to continue on with this, or am I going to choose a different path? So, yeah, engage is a very big part of it. Now, when I was thinking about it, I made a little joke in my mind. I was like, okay, now rinse and repeat. And I was like, yeah, but that's not true either. Yes, it is rinse and repeat, as in, okay, when you've gone to engage, you can go back to courage, remember what's that goal, what's really that goal, the 7 times why. How can I keep reminding myself? Maybe I need to use my phone and put some stuff in there. So every few hours, there's an alarm reminding me of what it is I need to do and want to do. So what if secretly I don't believe it? Am I going to write it down? Am I going to do something about it? And then we get back. But what if people tell you, well, maybe you need to change some things. Maybe you need to look at where you talk about it, where you go, what you do, where you gather your information. And of course, statistics, finding out, is what you're doing working? And can you actually gather statistics? So research is such an important element in all of this. And then we get back to the whole engaging, because who's going to help you figure out where you need to be? There's nothing more lonely than finding things out yourself and having to do things by yourself. It's so much nicer if you could be in a group with like-minded people who actually are there to support you. But yes, it comes with consequence, which is sharing about what it is that you want to do. And that's scary because, again, what if people keep you accountable for what you've said? So, thinking about this whole concept of change, I was like, okay, how does this work? How does this work for me? And well, I shared a little bit about it, about the change that I am going through, the change from saying, okay, I want to reach more people. And by getting to talk to people who are business owners, I know I can make a difference. And besides, I also like it because, well, I'm an entrepreneur. So it's always nice to see and hear how other people are doing things and are perceiving things. So there is a certain, how do you call it? We recognize something in one another. And there are some things that we all have in common. It has to do with a different form of responsibility, but also with a bit of creativity. And I think that a lot of business owners recognize that part, the creativity, the freedom. But freedom can be scary. So when I shared with you that at some point I decided to say I'm going to be full-time entrepreneur, well, I had no clue what was coming for me. Really. Would I have done it differently? Yeah, probably. um, a lot of things were not available when I started as an entrepreneur. Would I have done things differently? Yes, absolutely. There is a lot of information, there are a lot of courses available to me, and I cannot say that I've done them all. So I could have done them all, and maybe also find other people in the same situation could have helped. Now, as a coach and a therapist, of course, I did talk to other people, but there's a difference between being a coach and a therapist and being a business owner. And well, sometimes people, they just do it, they do it on the side. Other people are coaches or therapists, but they work for someone. So again, the question is, hey, how do you look at certain things? And well, I can tell you that I never thought, well, that's not entirely true. Because when I was still working for other people, that desire to change things in organizations was there already. I've I probably already talked about it with other people. It's just that now is the time to actually go do it. If I don't take that plunge, if I don't jump in, well, it's sort of unknown territory, but then again, it isn't. But I want to go there. I want to go there because I feel that I can make a bigger difference when you look at things top down. I mean, and I've said this before, but a business owner or manager, they work with other people. They have their own employees, and each employee has their own life. So just like the business owner or the manager, they not only have a work relationship with other people, but they usually also have a spouse. They usually also have children. Of course, not everyone has children, but there are a lot out there. You at some point have teenage children and then think about, okay, I started doing this because I thought, no, because they were good at it. Not even because they wanted to start a business, but there was something they saw. There was a creative element. They were good at something. And then at some point it was, I cannot do this alone. I need a team. And they got a team. But that didn't mean that they were managers with people skills. And it didn't mean that they thought about all the consequences of working with other people. And that's where it gets hard. Now, if I can have them communicate better, think about their own dreams, think about what it is they want to achieve, think about what it is they expect from other people. But also, when we talk about the employees, if I can get those employees to explain to others, to their boss, what it is they need, it won't only affect their working relationship with their colleagues and their boss, but it will also change things in their personal life. And that's when things become so, that's where we can make a difference. If people understand that speaking up and speaking out is not just related to their personal life or to their spouse or the people you meet in the streets, but it's also related to the people you work with, and vice versa. And well, all those things can have a ripple effect. Now, I'm going to give you an example of something that actually happened earlier today. I'm not entirely proud of it, but it's the way it was. But it's the best example I can get out there. So I was driving the car, and we have these narrow streets, which mean that we have to wait for other people. And back in the days, if you would wait, so you would make room so the other person could pass, you would say, thank you, you would raise your hand. And I've noticed that lately people just, they go on as if it's their right. And of course, the question is who's going to stop? But there's something like chivalry and being nice. So dealing with a couple of cars, I was like, okay, I'll wait. And then I waved kind of explicitly, and then the other person acknowledged it. And I was like, good. And then I was at the end of the street near a corner, and someone else came, and she came around the corner, and I was like, really? Are you going to drive on? What are you going to do? Are you going to go through me? And I reacted like, what are you going to do? I'm not going to go anywhere. It's your turn to go, back. And so at some point we passed another, rolled down the windows, and I said, well, there's nothing else I could do. I couldn't go back. I had someone else already pass through me, and, we can't go through one another. And then she said something, and, I really took that to heart. She said, are you in a rush? I said, no. Well, a little bit, but not, enough to be like, you need to go. No. So I said, no. And she said, yeah, because I just came around the corner and I didn't see you. So I saw her, which meant that I already was anticipating certain things, but on her end, she didn't. And that was a big difference. And she said, well, I couldn't. And then you started waving and and she said, well, that wasn't very nice. I said, well, you know what? You're right. I said, that's something to think about. So, well, basically the mere fact that I said, yeah, you were right. And I shouldn't have done so, and actually put my hands on my heart like, I'm sorry. And so then I wished her a great weekend, and she wished me a nice day. And hopefully I did manage to improve her mood after I managed to ruin it for that moment. But, the interaction that I had at that moment, it showed me something. And because we opened communication, we got to discuss what was going on. And I understood where she was coming from. And hopefully she understands where I'm coming from. And even if she doesn't understand where I'm coming from, I understand where she's coming from. And that's where situations get to change. And that's why what I mean with, if we can do it on one level, how about if it happens on another level too? And, once you learn to speak up and think about what it is you want to get across, it's kind of hard to stop doing so. But the most important thing is, the whole speaking up thing is not so much about saying words. You want it to be with substance. You want it to be with clarity. There's purpose behind the message. So it's not about screaming. It's not about sort of like I did earlier. It's about actually getting something across. And it's kind of funny because, the day before, a few days earlier, I was sitting in my car. I was waiting in the parking lot. I had someone on the phone. And it was hot, and it was like, well, as long as I've got the person on the phone, I'm not going to get out of the car. So I had the door open, and I was like, I'm not going to go into the mall because, a lot of noise. And at that moment, I saw someone backing out, and another person came and was like, I want to go through you. I don't want you to back out and take my room because I want to be in that space. I want to drive on. And I was like, oh my God, are you so much in a hurry that you can't? And that was exactly what she said. Are you in such a hurry? And I was like, oh, did I just do what that person did? And I was like, what the heck? What is he doing? And then I did something similar. And I was like, well, I don't try to go through people, but at some point, when enough people don't acknowledge what I'm doing, I might get annoyed. I'm human after all. But it was good because I had been looking at it and it was like, what's a few seconds? And it's how accidents happen. So doing sort of something similar earlier today, and like I said, it's not my proudest moment, but it did help me to figure things out. And the next time I'll be taking that route and someone is backing up from around the corner, then I'll know, yeah, I see you, but you don't see me. So let's see and wait a few moments until I'll see what you're going to do. And I'll do it with a smile. Well, that's going to make a lot of difference. I think that if people were a little more patient and do things with a smile, that things would be very different. And yes, of course, that also includes me. And I do believe that when we talk about these things and we adjust our attitude based on what we discuss, that again, that can cause a ripple effect. It can provide clarity. And talking to that lady provided me with clarity. I got to understand why she didn't react straight away and why she was waiting. And I was like, why are you waiting? But now I got it. She needed to process that someone had come around the corner. So, okay, I can get that. And so that's why I said the purpose of speaking up and speaking out is not so much to let your voice be heard. It's about the message that's behind what you're saying. It's about getting people to understand you and also to understand the message that the people want to get to you. Now, here's the thing. Not everyone is willing to take the time and the effort to make you something understand. So, for instance, when I was dealing with my ankle, I've spoken to a lot of doctors, and basically all they said is cannot be done. We don't do this surgery. You need to, it's Lexi, not Lexington. Hello, Basin Trout. So when I was talking to them, almost all of them said, no, can be done, won't be done. What are you doing here? And it wasn't until I got to speak to the lady who finally did the second surgery that I got to understand why they said it couldn't be done. And here's the thing, she got trained by someone, her predecessor, who I had been talking to the year prior to it. And he only had said, you need 2 surgeries and one doesn't exist. And the other one I'm not going to do. But when she explained to me, like, but this is about something that cannot be done, but it can be done in a different manner. It was like, oh, so I thought when I needed the surgery for my ankle, and now I'm going maybe into a little bit of technical part, but it's just for a short moment. So there were two bones which were shifting, and normally there are one. And the tendons are attached to it. And I never thought about where they would be attached. And I was like under the impression that the other part of the bone was actually pressing into those tendons. But that was not the case. What was happening was actually the tendons were attached to that bone. And when the bone was shifting, it took the tendons with that bone. It was moving along. So when she explained to me, like, but I cannot take all the tendons off and then reattach them, I was like, no, of course you cannot do that. That didn't mean that no. The moment that she said so, I understood why the previous doctors all had said, no, can't be done. Because they were thinking about those tendons and like, oh, we need to take them. And so the only thing they actually said is, well, we don't know what the result is from taking away that bone. No one said there are tendons attached to it, which need to be reattached. They only said, well, the bone is there for a reason, and we don't know what's going to happen if the bone is not there anymore. So what she did is she explained things to me. And that's what made all the difference. So when we speak up and speak out, it's about communicating, about clarity, about understanding what the other one is talking about, and also sharing what it is that you need from them. So what I needed was I wanted to have my freedom back. I wanted to be able to walk again. And what they needed to do was get me to understand why something could work and why something could not work. Well, the difference between her and all the other people was that she said, well, I have a different solution. And somehow none of the others had come up with a different solution. Maybe because they didn't think about it, could be. Or maybe because they thought I was stuck on that one idea, which wasn't true, because the moment that she explained it, it was like, oh, now I understand what you're talking about. So when we talk about speaking up and speaking out, and we talk about change, the question starts with, what change do we want? Why do we want it? And if we are going to share with other people what we want, how are we going to get our ideas across? And actually, do we know ourselves what it is we want? But by talking to other people, you will get a better perception of what it is you want and need. So in the last couple of weeks, I've been talking with other people, like, okay, especially also with my coach and a different coach, like, okay, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? What is it that I can do differently? And also the mere fact that I'm thinking about it without even talking to them already makes a difference. So it's about, hey, how much time do you spend on that one idea, that one thing, that one change that you want to create, or that you are dealing with? And what is it that you want to get out of it? So for some people, it's like, okay, we're just going to go along with that change because we want to be safe, we want to be paid, we don't want to get into a fight. So they might want to speak up, but they don't dare to because they probably think, what's the use? But on the other hand, if that happens, like I said, maybe you can think about what is it that you can do. Don't think in what you cannot do. Don't just keep thinking about the negativity, but start thinking about the possibilities. That's why I said if one door closes, then another door opens. But yes, and I'll get back to it, it does take courage to keep going, to work on it every day, especially when you don't see the results straight away, because it takes time to build a certain foundation and to go on from there. And especially when you make a big change and you have to start over again, then how is this going to affect you? And well, the question, of course, is, are you willing to do whatever it takes, time-wise, not only financial, but especially time-wise, especially when it comes to doing some research, especially when it comes to taking action, especially when it comes to, okay, I've done this, how can I tweak and change? So are we just going to go and do something new and forget about the old? Or are we going to see how old and new can actually match? What is it that you're going to do? How far are you willing to go? And again, I realized that thinking about certain things can be scary, and it's easier to just push it away, not think about it, because, well, if you don't, you can't be confronted, not with disappointment, but also not with other people not agreeing, and also not with the things that you haven't done. So, yeah, talking about things that does require courage. So getting back to it, yes, courage will be something that you need whenever it comes to change. Whether it's because you are going to do something that's new, whether it's going to be a huge step, whether it's financially or because it has its impact maybe on your family life, maybe on other people. There's something that needs to be done. But if you think about why you want to do it, what's the bigger goal? What is it that you're going to achieve? And you make sure that you do something about it every day. So it's not just about thinking about it, but actually about taking action. And then whenever you are like, oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? Write it down, talk about it. When it's out there, you can change it. It's when we get rid of all the negativity that we actually can have good, positive energy come in again. And yes, it might take a lot of extra work, tweaking and changing, trying and adjusting. But don't throw it all away and then say, okay, I've always done that. Now I'm going to do something else because that doesn't fit me anymore. But see which part is there that actually still works for you. How can you build on what you have already done? I mean, even when we talk about IT and what I'm doing right now, one can say, yeah, well, you're a coach and a therapist, but how's that related to IT? But what I did in IT was I gave training. I was a service manager. I was a person who was responsible for large, I talked to providers. I was the client, but I also was in a position where I would provide stuff on behalf of other people. And I would talk to the clients. So communication-wise, a lot was going on. I even was a communication manager at some point. And I always seemed to talk to the old ones out. So there we went again. And that's the thing. The thing is, what is it that you already did, what you're already good at, what you can take with you into the other stuff? So wanting people to understand one another, which was key, especially when it came to IT and what I did, and getting people to understand, like, okay, listen, if you are going to outsource your IT to head office, then you need to know what that means to you. and what you can expect from them and what you cannot expect from them. And they might say, oh, everything is going to be hunky-dory sweet and amazing. But, I'm the one you need to talk to also when things are done. And I'm going to tell you it doesn't work that way because I'm being realistic because I've seen it elsewhere. Well, so there's a lot of things that I already knew. Did things change when a decade ago I twisted my ankle and I couldn't stand on 2 feet anymore? Oh, yeah, absolutely. It changed everything. It still does. But that doesn't mean that it was necessarily the worst thing that could happen to me. I think that I've learned so much because of it. And being in a position where I can help other people to speak up and speak out and realize that they are worth something and that they do have a future ahead of them and that they do have perspective makes such a big difference. Now, like I said, if I can make it happen and make it and do it on a bigger scale, that would be so cool. But yes, when it comes to groundwork, it's very different from what I used to do as a coach and what it is that I'm doing now. So a lot of it is actually based on when I was still working in businesses. And it's not like it's entirely new. It's just that, hey, how are people going to find me? I mean, when I started up locally, that was one thing, I put ads in the newspapers and I would go to fairs and people would find me. But this is so different. So how can I do this best? Well, yeah, that takes research, that takes legwork, that takes groundwork, that takes getting out there and figuring out what it is. And yes, I need to engage with others in order to figure out, is this the right strategy or not? Now, the question, of course, is what is it that you want to change? And how are you going to go about it? Now, I've got that worksheet. Remember that worksheet from thinking about negative things and getting them from negative to positive. And if you are interested in change, then go to ladylexi.com/sign up for change. Why? Well, first of all, you get the free PDF. But second of all, if you do so and you reach out, you can also get a free call with me, a free coaching call, and we can talk about this change and what it is that you need. So if you're interested and you're ready for it, then go ladylexi.com/sign up for change and find me. Get that free PDF, see how it works for you. Watch some other videos so you can see who I am. And, well, consider becoming part of the group coaching that I do every Tuesday, or better yet, prepare for coming to the trip with me, which is going to be in September in Chicago. Now, if you want to share your ideas and your worries and your dreams with other people, like-minded other people, then this is the chance to go do it. But it starts with signing up, going to ladylexi.com/sign up for change. And once you do that, then, let's see where it can take you.